now the presentation of Pieces of the Past resumed by the Campbell County Historical and Genealogical Society in memory of Jim Reis, researcher, writer, author, and friend. Today we are going to meet Anthony and Anna Lee, early settlers in Campbell County. Anthony Lee was born in Fairfax County, Virginia in 1795, the son of Anthony. Anna Trimble Lee was also born in Virginia in 1810. It is not known at this time if Anthony or Anna were born free or were enslaved. It is known that there were many listed as free in the county court records at that time. What we do know is that Anthony Lee was listed in the 1840 census in Lexington, Kentucky as a free black and owned a business. By 1820, Lexington was one of the largest and wealthiest towns west of the Allegheny Mountains. So cultured was its lifestyle that city soon gained the nickname the Athens of the West. Anthony and Anna Lee were also members of the First African Baptist Church in Lexington. This church, shown here, had been formed in 1790 by Peter Durrett and his wife, slaves at the time. London Farrell, also a free black from Virginia, was the preacher by the time the Lees were involved with the church. It is the oldest black Baptist church in Kentucky and on the historical register. At the time the Lees were in Lexington, it was a major manufacturing center. Most of this manufacturing centered on hemp production. The hemp was grown on area farms and then manufactured into rope on the many rope walks or rope factories within the city limits. In 1845, while the Lees were still in Lexington, Cassius Clay began publishing an anti-slavery newspaper, True American, in Lexington. Within a month, he received death threats, had to arm himself, and regularly barricaded the armed doors of his newspaper office for protection, besides setting up 2 4-pounder cannon inside. Shortly after, a mob of about 60 men broke into his office and seized his printing equipment. To protect his venture, Clay set up a publication center in Cincinnati, a center of abolitionists in the Free State, but continued to reside in Kentucky. In 1847, according to the records of the Flag Spring Baptist Church, Anthony Lee Jr. was entered into the rolls of the church. For some reason, Anna's not listed. It is interesting that they chose to move to Campbell County. Perhaps Lexington became too unfriendly to blacks there, but we do not know. Or it could be because of the Ball family. The Flag Spring Baptist Church was constituted on the 7th of December, 1833, at the Flag Spring Meeting House about 1 mile from the Ohio River, and but a few feet from the place where the present house stands. The names of the founders shown here would all have known Anthony and Anna while in their congregation. In the 1850 census, we find Anthony Lee and his family working for Janetta Ball in Flag Spring. He was a farmer and Ann was a domestic. What is interesting about this relationship is that Janetta and her husband, Edward P. Ball, who is dead at this point, came from Virginia and settled in Campbell County by 1820 with 20 slaves. Edward's ancestor, William Ball, was the brother of Joseph Ball, who was the father of Mary Ball, who was the mother of President George Washington. More on this little story later. Peter D. Nelson, on January 7, 1851, for $175, was paid to him by Anthony Lee, a free man of color, and sold him 14 7/8 acres of land. The land was in Lot 6 in the division of Richard Nelson's estate in Campbell County. This property was very close to the Ohio River. The Nelson family had several slaves since they had arrived from Virginia also, and it is very likely that the Lee family knew them well since they were neighbors. It is likely that Anthony Lee helped these slaves in March 1851 escape from Campbell County, as he was in a prime spot on the Ohio River to ferry escaped people across the river to the Parker Academy in Claremontville, Ohio. Quote, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men," end quote. This quote from Frederick Douglass simply states that the philosophy by which the Parker family lived. The Parker Academy was a school founded in 1839 in New Richmond, Ohio by Daniel and Priscilla Parker. Originally known as Claremont Academy, it is believed to be one of the first schools in the United States to offer fully integrated classrooms that were open to anyone that desired an education, no matter the age, gender, race, or ideology. The Parker Academy was a safe haven for its numerous students, many of whom were runaway slaves. Despite backlash from pro-slavery advocates, the Parkers were determined to offer a genuine education to any and all students. In a time plagued with racism, slavery, and crippled by the devastating effects of the Civil War, the ability to achieve an education, regardless of color or gender, was an opportunity unheard of in the United States at that time. In the midst of one of the country's darkest movements, the Parker Academy was a beacon of hope, freedom, and resistance in a small town on the Ohio River that divided the North and the South. The Lee family was very familiar with the people in this school. Several slaves escaped from Kentucky by crossing the river and ice on Saturday night above Newport. Again, the Lee family was in the perfect spot to help freedom seekers across the river. Several slaves escaped from Kentucky by crossing the river on ice on Saturday night above Newport. Again, it is believed that the Lee family helped many freedom seekers across the river to freedom, nor is it known how many people they helped across the river. Now here's another twist to the story of the Lee family. In the 1860 census, there is a woman named Hagar Lee, aged 96, living with them. In the 1870 census, she states that she was the servant of General Washington. In both of the census records, she is a free woman of color. In examining the slaves who were freed when George Washington died, she is not listed. It is assumed that she came to the Washington household as a gift to Martha Danbridge Curtis, George's wife from the Daniel Curtis family. This would have been Martha's first husband's family. As one can see from the census, Anthony has a property value of $300 and a personal value of $200. The draft for the Union Army in Campbell County was done 5th of April, 1865, at the Provost Marshal's office in Covington. 482 names were drawn out of the wheel. Anthony Lee was one of those names. However, the war ended before he could serve, but he certainly was ready at the age of 70. From research done by Dr. Theodore H. Harris, Hagar Lee was born 21 March 1751 in Virginia and came to Kentucky with Lewis Wilcoxon and his wife Sarah Beale, who was a sister of Benjamin Beale. Lewis and Sarah were married 17 February 1796 in Mercer County, Kentucky. Benjamin Beale and his family came to Campbell County in 1796 also. Since Hagar was with Anthony in the 1860 as a free woman, it is not known at this time if the Wilcoxon family freed her or if Anthony purchased her. Quote, on Sunday last, Aunt Hagar, a colored woman, died in the country near Alexandria. She was probably the oldest person in the United States, being 122 years, having been born on the 21st of March, 1751. She was a native of Virginia and was brought to Kentucky at an early day of a settlement by Lewis Wilcoxon, whose wife was a sister of Ben Beale, the elder grandfather of Ben Beale, the present circuit clerk of Campbell County. At the time of the old woman's death, she was living in the care of a colored man named Anthony Lee. She died of old age. For the past 20 years, she has been blind, but in other respects possessed all her faculties to the last. Hager Lee was buried in the Flag Spring Baptist Cemetery. Anthony Lee died in 1874 and was also buried there. It is assumed that Anne was buried there also. The story of the Lee family in their efforts to help other freedom seekers was lost in the years of time, but is now told again. We invite you to visit the Campbell County Historical and Genealogical Society in Alexandria to learn more about the families of Campbell County.